So let's start with number 1 here. And when I label this, I'm just going to label it A, B, C. And then I'm going to give myself my data here. I'm going to coordinate all my data into one little spot. I don't know about A. I do know about B, 65. I don't know about C. Opposite the big A is the little a, so my little a is 12. Opposite the big B is my little b, that's X. Opposite the big C is the little c, that's 7. Do I have what I need to use the law of sines here? No, I've got a ratio with B that's going to work fine, but I need to have either angle A or angle C. And because I'm missing 2 angles, I can't use triangle angle sum to find it. I'm stuck. Law of sines will not work for this problem. Fortunately, we don't only have the law of sines, we also have the law of cosines. Now, law of cosines is significantly more challenging. So if we can do the law of sines, we should. We can't in this case. So let me tell you the law of cosines. C squared equals A squared plus B squared. That looks too obvious. Let's make it more complicated. Minus 2AB cosine of C. That's the law of cosines. But the way I've actually set this problem up, could I use this formula to solve this problem? I wouldn't have angle B anywhere in there. And so I'd have an empty spot for here. I'd also have an X for here. I'd get 2 variables, which wouldn't work. So if I need this one to have a cosine of a big B here, it just means I labeled them differently. If this is B, what do you think my starting thing is? Little b squared. And if I use up my b squared here, what do you think these two are? A squared plus c squared, good. Minus 2 times what? Good. If these are a and b's when I had a and b's here, this will be 2 times ac times cosine of b. Would you please take a moment to find the third version? What does it have to be? Somebody who hasn't spoken, give me the first term here. Raise your hand, give it to me. Yes. A squared, good. Equals, somebody who hasn't spoken, raise your hand, give me the next term. Anna. B squared. Someone else? Plus c squared, good. Someone else? 2bc times someone else. Cosine of A. Good. So these are the 3 forms of law of cosines. Which one would we choose here? The c squared, the b squared, or the a squared? B squared, because we've got a capital B and we're looking for B. So I'm going to put in b squared minus a equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine b. And I'll plug in the values. X squared equals 12 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 12 times 7 cosine of 65. And let's start simplifying this. X squared equals, what's 12 squared? 144. 7 squared? 49. 12 times 7 is 84 times 2 is 168. Cosine 65. What next? Add these two. So x squared equals 193 minus 168 cosine of 65. What's next? Sorry, louder. This right here is where everyone makes mistakes on these problems. Let me show you something slightly different here. Let's say that I had 12 is equal to 3 plus 5x. Can I do this? Does everyone agree that's not allowed? Because the 3 and the 5 are not comparable terms. This one has a term attached to it. This one does not, has a variable attached to it. So you can't do that. Instead, how would you solve this? -3, so 9 is equal to 5x. Divide by 5, you get 9/5 equals x, right? Same thing going on here. The mistake most people make is they look at the 193 minus 168 and they subtract that and get 25 cosine of 65. But that's the same thing as combining 3 and 5x to 8x. This one is being multiplied by something, so you can't do that. This is as far as I can take this right now. To solve for x, what do I do? Good, square root. So now in my calculator, I'm going to enter in the square root of that whole mess. Second, x squared brings up the square root. 193 minus 168 times cosine 65, close parentheses. And I get x is approximately equal to 11.05, let's say. Let's round to the nearest hundredth. Please use your calculators. Make sure you can get that answer. Five, I got that answer. Look how good I am. 3, I will get that answer next time. I made a little mistake, but I know what that mistake was. 1, I don't think I can do this. Low battery. Okay. Now, I'm going to let you guys do 2 and 3 together. Before we do 4, I need to present you with an example because this one's a little different. Same concept. Let's label this one. This is not on your sheet, so please just watch. Go along with me. So big A we're looking for. How big is little a? How big is little b? How big is little c? Okay. Which trig function, which version of our law of cosine should we use here? C squared, B squared, or A squared? A squared, good, because we want to get this. The only one that has angle A in it would be that one. So I'm going to use A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine A. Then I'll plug it in. 6 squared equals 5 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 5 times 7 times cosine A. Whereas with this last one, because we're using these calculators that allow you to enter stuff in, I really could have entered this whole thing in as one line right away and then just taken the square root of it. In fact, take your calculators and do that for me, please. Enter this whole mess in. Raise your hand if you got 122.000132. Okay. If you got something else, raise your hand now. Okay, double check your work. 12 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 12 times 7 times cosine 65. You should get 122. How would you then find the square root of this? Stick with me here, guys. How would you find the square root of this? A lot of people would do this. They'd say square root, second x squared, and they would just enter in what they see here. Is that precise? No. Is there another way I can do that? I can press second x squared to get that square root, and then I can say, I want that answer that I had in the calculator just a second ago. Just above this negative sign, it says ANS. So if I do square root and then press second and that little negative sign for ANS, it'll give me the square root of my last answer. And I hit enter and it'll give me my answer. Pro tip. Okay, let's go back to this. I want to solve for cosine A. What do I do first? Okay, so I'll do this part. 36 equals 25 plus 49 minus 10 times 7 minus 70 cosine of A. Now what? 36 equals 74 minus 70 cosine A. Now what? Isn't it this now? What do I do? Good. This is the mistake people make. They say 74 minus 70 is 4 cosine A. That's not valid. You can't take 3 plus 5x and call it 8x. You can't combine these two. So instead, I'm going to subtract 74. I get negative 38 equals negative 70 cosine of A. How do I solve? What's my next step? I'm trying to get A, so I got to peel off the onions around it. How do I peel off the negative 70? It's multiplied, so I'm going to divide. The negatives cancel. I'm now at a ratio equals cosine of A. How do I get rid of the cosine? Cosine is not being multiplied, is it? Nope. What's being done to A right now? It's being cosigned. Cosine is the verb. How do you undo it? Uncosine it. Anti-cosinify. Discosinification. Also called inverse cosine. When you do that, the right side is A, the left side is cosine minus 1 is equal to 38 over 70. Do that in your calculator. And I get that A is approximately equal to 57.12 degrees. Okay, that's how we use the law of cosines. Be careful, please, when you find the angle especially. You have to go through this simplification process until you get A. In your homework, I want to see that work. Do it carefully. Don't make the mistake over here that's so familiar. Okay, you've got the rest of the period to work on this packet. Go.